The wedding invitation arrived 3 months ago with my name misspelled. Allison instead of Allison. Small detail, except my sister Melissa had checked that invitation design 47 times according to her Instagram stories. The seating chart she posted showed table 1 for immediate family, tables 2-8 for her important guests from her pharmaceutical sales job, and table 23 tucked near the kitchen entrance. That's where she'd placed me. It's just realistic, Mom said when I called to confirm. Melissa's colleagues are all successful professionals. You're still doing that consulting thing from your apartment. That consulting thing. They'd been calling it that for 2 years. My little government consulting project that kept me busy with phone calls at odd hours. The reason I couldn't make Mom's birthday dinner because I was probably just playing computer games anyway. The explanation for why I lived modestly in a 1-bedroom apartment in Arlington instead of a house in the suburbs like Melissa. I understand, I said quietly. I always said that. The day of the wedding I dressed carefully in my navy suit. Conservative, unremarkable, appropriate. The kind of outfit that wouldn't draw attention at a formal event. I checked my phone twice during the drive to the venue. The encrypted messages app showed 3 notifications I'd deal with later. The country club was decorated exactly as Melissa's Pinterest board predicted. White roses everywhere, champagne fountains, a string quartet playing in the corner. I arrived early watching the coordination happen. That's when I noticed them. 2 men in dark suits with earpieces, scanning the room with practiced efficiency. They positioned themselves near the exits. One spoke quietly into his wrist. Allison. My Aunt Karen grabbed my arm. Look at you in your little suit. Still doing the computer stuff? Melissa says you work from home in your pajamas most days. Something like that, I replied. She steered me toward the bar where my Uncle Richard held court. This wedding cost $75,000, he announced to everyone nearby. Melissa married a cardiologist. A real doctor, not like these people who call themselves doctors with their online degrees. They're buying a house in Greenwich. What do you rent for in Arlington? $1,800? $2,000. The apartment works for my needs. You should talk to Melissa about getting into pharmaceutical sales, Aunt Karen suggested. She makes 6 figures. Real career potential. Better than whatever consulting is. I smiled and excused myself to find my table. Table 23 was exactly where the seating chart promised. Partially hidden behind a decorative column, close enough to the kitchen that I could hear the catering staff coordinating courses. The other seats at my table were empty. Place cards read, guest of bride, without names. I wasn't even at a table with other people they knew. The ceremony was beautiful. Melissa looked stunning in her custom gown. During the family photos afterward, the photographer positioned everyone carefully. Mom and Dad in the center with Melissa and her new husband Derek. Grandparents on one side. Aunt Karen's family on the other. Bridesmaids arranged by height. Allison, could you just... The photographer gestured vaguely behind a large potted plant. We want to keep the main grouping tight. Behind the plant. Actually behind it, where my face was partially obscured by leaves. I stood there while they took 43 photos, judging by the shutter clicks. In only 2 did the photographer ask me to step partially into frame. Perfect, Melissa said, not looking at me. These will be gorgeous. The reception started with the usual schedule. Cocktail hour, grand entrance, first dance, toasts. I stayed at table 23, watching from my partially hidden position. The security detail had grown. 4 men now, positioned at each corner of the ballroom. Their presence seemed unusual for a country club wedding, but no one else appeared to notice or care. During dinner, Mom stopped by my table. She didn't sit. I'm sorry about the seating, she said in a tone that meant she wasn't sorry at all. But you understand. Melissa needed to prioritize Derek's colleagues from the hospital. These are important connections for their future. Doctors, surgeons, medical directors. People with real careers and real success. Of course. And honestly, honey, what would you even talk about with them? Your little consulting projects? They're discussing surgical procedures and medical breakthroughs. It would just be awkward for everyone. She patted my shoulder and returned to table 1, where everyone was laughing at something Uncle Richard said. I watched them pass around phones, probably showing pictures of Melissa's new house. The one I'd never been invited to see. My phone buzzed. The encrypted app. I glanced at it quickly, A message about tomorrow's briefing schedule and put it away. Not now. Tonight I was just the disappointing sister at table 23. The toasts began. Derek's father spoke about his son's achievements. Harvard Medical School, cardiology fellowship, chief resident. And he found the perfect partner in Melissa, he concluded. A successful pharmaceutical sales representative building her own impressive career. They're going to achieve remarkable things together. Melissa's toast came from her maid of honor, who recounted their college years and Melissa's drive to succeed. She always knew exactly what she wanted. Success, stability, the perfect life. And she never let anyone hold her back, especially not people who didn't share her ambition. That line got knowing looks from several family members. A few glanced toward my partially hidden table. Then Uncle Richard stood up with an unscheduled toast. He was already drunk. To Melissa, he said loudly, who actually made something of herself. Unlike some people in this family who are 31 years old and still pretending their little hobbies are real jobs. He looked directly at my column. Some of us work real careers. Some of us just waste our potential hiding behind computers. The room went quiet for a moment. A few people laughed uncomfortably. Mom smiled tightly. Melissa looked away. No one defended me. They never did. I took a sip of water and said nothing. The security team was moving now. I noticed them communicating with quick gestures, repositioning near the main entrance. One spoke into his wrist again, then nodded to the others. The ballroom doors opened. The Prime Minister of Canada entered with his security detail. The entire room froze. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Glasses paused halfway to mouths. Melissa's champagne flute slipped from her hand, and her bouquet fell to the floor as she stood up too quickly. Prime Minister Trudeau moved through the ballroom with his characteristic ease, his security team flanking him. He shook hands with a few people near the entrance, smiled at the shocked faces, and then his eyes scanned the room methodically. "There you are," he said, spotting my partially hidden table. He walked directly toward me. "Allison, I apologize for the disruption. I was in Connecticut for meetings at the submarine base and wanted to personally thank you before tomorrow's NATO summit session." The room had gone completely silent. 200 people staring. I stood up. "Prime Minister, this is my sister's wedding. Your timing is." "I know, and I'm sorry." He smiled warmly. "But after what you coordinated last week with the defense procurement protocols, I wanted to thank you personally. The briefing materials you prepared for the G7 were exceptional as always." Uncle Richard's face had gone gray. Mom's mouth was open. Melissa looked like she might faint. "You hide behind columns at family events?" The Prime Minister glanced at my positioning with obvious disapproval. "Canada's Deputy Chief of Mission to the United States, who coordinates policy briefings for 3 allied governments, and you're seated by the kitchen? It's complicated," I said quietly. "I'm sure it is." He turned to address the room, his voice carrying that authoritative tone I heard in international meetings. "I'm interrupting a private celebration, so I'll be brief. Allison Clark is one of the most valuable advisors in North American diplomatic relations. She manages security coordination between Canada, the US, and NATO. Last month, she personally briefed the Secretary of State on Arctic defense strategy. She holds top-secret security clearances in 2 countries." He paused, looking around at the frozen faces. "She also," he continued, "happens to earn a salary of $187,000 annually from the Canadian government alone, not counting her U.S. consultation fees. She manages a team of 43 diplomatic staff across 2 embassies. And she's the youngest person ever appointed to her position. She was 29 when she started." The silence was absolute. "I'm curious," the Prime Minister said, his tone cooling as he looked at my family's tables. "How does someone this accomplished end up hidden behind a plant at her own sister's wedding?" No one answered. Uncle Richard had turned away. Mom was pale. Melissa stood frozen, Derek's hand on her arm. "Allison also," he continued, not letting it go, "coordinated the security briefings for this wedding venue when my office requested protection protocols. She did it on her own time, to ensure her family's celebration wouldn't be disrupted. Though I see the family didn't extend the same courtesy to her." He turned back to me. "The car is outside. We need to prep for tomorrow's sessions, but I wanted to thank you first." Then louder to the room, Congratulations on your wedding. You have a remarkable family member. Perhaps you should get to know her. He left with his security team, the doors closing behind them. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Every single person was staring at me now. Not at Melissa in her wedding gown. Not at the bride and groom's table. At me, standing next to table 23 by the kitchen. Melissa found her voice first. You work for the Canadian government? Deputy Chief of Mission, I corrected quietly. And I consult for the State Department. But you said you did consulting. You said, Mom's voice broke. You live in that tiny apartment. I live in Arlington because it's 8 minutes from the Pentagon and 12 minutes from the State Department. The apartment is temporary until my posting assignments finalize. The phone calls, Dad said slowly. The ones you said were work things. Those were NATO coordination meetings, security briefings, policy consultations. Kept my voice level. The times I couldn't make family dinners because I was probably playing games were actually classified briefing sessions. Uncle Richard tried to salvage something. Well, you could have told us. How were we supposed to know? I tried, I said simply. 3 months ago at Dad's birthday, I started to explain my promotion to deputy chief. Mom interrupted to talk about Melissa's sales numbers. At Christmas, I mentioned the G7 summit preparation. Aunt Karen said I should stop making up stories to sound important. The whispers grew louder. Derek's father, the one who'd toasted real careers, was whispering urgently to Derek. Several of Derek's hospital colleagues were looking at their phones, probably searching my name and finding the official diplomatic postings. The money you said you made, Melissa whispered. You actually make more than your pharmaceutical sales, yes. I have for 2 years. I paused. I also paid for Dad's car repairs last year. The $9,000 he said came from his Christmas bonus? That was me. I've been sending Mom $2,000 monthly for her medical bills. She thinks it's from Dad's overtime. Mom's face crumpled. Dad looked at his shoes. You never said anything, Melissa said. You never asked, I replied. You decided I was unsuccessful and treated me accordingly. The consulting thing from my apartment. The little hobby. The waste of potential. I picked up my small clutch purse from table 23. Inside was my diplomatic credentials case, the one I'd kept hidden all night. I didn't take it out. They didn't need to see it now. I need to leave. Tomorrow's NATO summit briefings start at 6 a.m. Congratulations on your marriage, Melissa. I hope it's everything you wanted. I walked toward the exit. The crowd parted. No one tried to stop me. At the door I glanced back once. Melissa was crying, her perfect wedding now known for being the event where the Prime Minister of Canada exposed her family's cruelty to their most accomplished member. Derek was arguing quietly with his father. Uncle Richard sat heavily in his chair, his face red. Mom called my phone 19 times that night. I didn't answer. 3 weeks later, I heard through Aunt Karen that Mom and Dad had to explain to their friends why the Prime Minister interrupted their daughter's wedding. The story spread through their social circle. Their church group. Dad's work colleagues. Everyone knew now. Melissa sent an email. A long one, full of apologies and explanations. She wanted to talk, to explain, to make me understand the pressure she'd been under. I read it once and archived it without responding. I accepted a promotion 6 months later. Ambassador to Norway, the youngest ever appointed at 32. My office sent the official announcement to my family. I don't know if they attended the swearing-in ceremony. I never looked for them in the crowd. The last message I got from Mom said they'd sold the house and downsized to a condo. Without the money I'd been secretly sending, their lifestyle proved unsustainable. She didn't ask for help. She just wanted me to know they understood now what they'd lost. I sent a brief reply. I hope you find what you're looking for. Some people don't recognize what's valuable until it's gone. My family spent years hiding me behind plants and seating me by kitchens, never bothering to ask what I actually did or who I actually was. They know now. The whole story became a cautionary tale in their social circles. The family who dismissed their daughter as unsuccessful until the Prime Minister of Canada arrived at a wedding to set them straight. I'm in Oslo now, coordinating Nordic defense policy and Arctic security protocols. My apartment overlooks the harbor. I brief foreign ministers and coordinate international treaties. I do real work that matters. And I'm no longer available for family photos behind the plants.